Good morning, boys and girls. Welcome to Awana, Week 2. We're going to be learning about the Bible today. We're learning some facts, so pay good attention. First of all, the Bible is divided into two big parts. We call them the Old Testament and the New Testament. And those testaments are divided into smaller sections we call books. There are 39 books in the Old Testament and 27 books in the New Testament. 39 Old Testament books, 27 New Testament books. We'll be learning the books of the Bible soon, and you'll be able to find your way through the Bible easily that way. Of course, they're all put in one large book we call the Bible. Now, here's how you remember how many books there are in the New Testament and the Old Testament. All you have to remember is the number 3. Take the 3 and multiply it by itself, and you get 9. Take the 3 and the 9, and you get 39 books in the Old Testament. Now multiply 3 times 9, and you get 27 books in the New Testament, 66 altogether. Now, every story in the book is true. Every bit of it is true. And most of it takes place in the near or land of Israel. God used at least 40 men to write the Bible for him. Remember, he had them write the Bible for him. And it took over 1,500 years for the whole Bible to be written. The last part of the Bible was written, the New Testament was written almost 2,000 years ago. But it's still good for us today. And it was written in 3 languages. The Old Testament was written in Hebrew, and the New Testament was written in Greek and a language called Aramaic, which was popular in those days. And when they invented the printing press, the first book they printed was the Bible. And more books have been printed of the Bible than any other book in the whole world. Now here's a verse in the Bible that talks about itself. It's located in the book of Timothy, the second book of Timothy, chapter 3, verse 16. And it says, all scripture is God-breathed. Scripture means the Bible, and God-breathed means God literally breathed the words into the men he had write it. He inspired them what he wanted them to write. And it's useful for teaching. It teaches us about God, it teaches us about ourselves, and it teaches us what God has done for us. And we learned about that last week. It's good for rebuking too. Rebuking means telling you when you're doing something wrong. And correcting means telling us how to stop doing things wrong, what the right things to do are. And training in righteousness means it helps us to learn how to live better lives that are pleasing to God. Now, we have to remember all these things. The Bible is a special book. It is the only book that was written by God for us. It was inspired by God, came from God, even though he used men to write it. God tells us, about him, and about Jesus Christ and what Christ has done for us. And we learned that last week. And the main message of the Bible is that Jesus Christ died for the bad things, for the sins that we do, so that we can be right with God and we can live with God forever someday. And the words are very important, just as if God is speaking out loud to us. We need to listen to them, and we need to remember them. So that's why we memorize verses in Awana, so that we can know what God has for us to do. They help us to know what to do. They help us to know how to tell others about God. And it's a gift to us, one of God's gifts. Other God's gifts are life that he gives us and everything that he gives us in this life. Food, air to breathe, everything. And it helps us in many ways. It tells us about ourselves. It tells us about our sin, the bad things we do that make us separated from God. And it tells us how not to be separated from God through Jesus Christ, which we learned last week. Here's our memory verse for this week. It's found in the book of Romans, chapter 10, verse 17. It says, faith comes from hearing the message, and the message is heard through the word of Christ. So we can learn to have faith in Jesus Christ, to believe what he did for us by reading the Bible, the message. The message is the Bible. And so we can hear that by reading it, by studying it, and by learning verses from it. So, boys and girls, see you again next week. We're going to be studying about God, learning things about God, and that'll be for several weeks to come.